This is my senior brother, the Thabo Mbeki I have known for many, many years. Well, he's a young adult now, but he's still very dynamic. You can see clarity of thought, eloquence in speech. That is, Your Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and our esteemed guest, Minister of Education, Science and Technology, Professor Adolf Mkenda, Chairperson of the University Council, Ambassador Mwanaidi Majal, Vice Chancellor, Professor William Anangise, Acting High Commissioner of the South African Embassy, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Let me again begin by thanking, on behalf of the University of Dar es Salaam and on my own behalf, our deepest appreciation and warmest welcome to our esteemed guest, His Excellency Dr. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and one of the most revered Pan-African thinkers and statesmen of our time. Your Excellency, we are most grateful for you to consider the University of Dar es Salaam to host this year's Thabo Mbeki lecture. It's an honor for which we highly appreciate. We commend your vision and tireless efforts to reposition Africa to its rightful place in global affairs, where it is not a passive observer, but an active and respected participant in shaping international relations and global power dynamics. The theme of this year's lecture, the state of the continent, reigniting the African Renaissance, could not be more timely or more urgent. You have set the tone for serious reflection and have reignited a long-burning flame, the desire for African transformation driven by African thought, African agency, African leadership, and the African people. The winds of change are gathering storm across the continent, but what Africa needs now is not cosmetic reforms, not rhetoric, but profound structural and ideological transformation that redefines governance, economic models, and intellectual production on African terms. The demand for change is growing, and it is a demand that we, as leaders, intellectuals, and institutions, must respond to with clarity and courage. Your Excellency, we are especially inspired by your deliberate inclusion of young people and emerging intellectuals on this podium. That gesture speaks volumes about your continued belief in the power and potential of Africa's youth. They are indeed the lifeblood of our continent's future. I join you in calling for increased intra-African youth engagement, facilitated by homegrown Pan-African programs that foster dialogue, unity, and purpose across the borders. President, when you spoke about the role of this university, I remember when I was here, I was a student here, 72 to 75. That was quite a long time by any standards. But you can imagine at that time, Professor Shivji was a very young man. radical class struggles in Africa, writing articles. And at that time, President, we had a team of professors and lecturers from across the globe, but all of them with that revolutionary mind. Walter Rodney was here. And he wrote his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, when he was here. We used to have ideological classes every Sunday. And those of us who were attending those classes used to call ourselves Sunday metaphysicists. We used to invite people to come and talk. And at that time, the University of Dar es Salaam was red, dynamic, and we were the bastion of thinking about the African Revolution. One incident I would remember when I was student leader here was the day when Gasha Butelezi came. As you see these guys here, he made a brilliant speech. Everybody was quiet, very attentive. And then when it came question and answer session, I think this was 1973, the first question was, you gave us a very brilliant speech on your contribution to the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. But can you answer one simple question? Why are you still not in prison? Nelson Mandela is in prison. Govan Mbeki, your dad, was in prison. That Logri, Walter Sisulu, and even. But why? And the other question that was asked, and the Boers have allowed you to travel and come to all the places but Tanzania. What the Boers at that time used to call Tanzania the bastion of terrorism in Africa. Then he says, I came here, it is their own mistake. Okay, fine. The other question which irritated him was, what is your position on the armed struggle? Butelezi got so angry. He says, where are the guns? Then, you know, in those days when we had problems with anybody we don't want here, would simply start, go home, go home, go home, go home. Then students started chanting, go home, go home, go home. He left the stage, climbed down. He almost forgot his wife here. In those days, we used to be quite active. The other incident I will tell you was when Sir Alec Douglas Hume came. He was the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom. And at that time, the British were playing games with the question of the independence of Zimbabwe. So some people told us that he's coming. I was a student leader. What we did was to organize buses. We loaded students onto the buses to the airport with our placards billboards picketing. At that time, His Excellency John Malechela was foreign minister. So we went there with our buses, and the police said, no, you cannot be allowed to go to inside the airport. Then I was asked to go and talk to the foreign minister. And at that time, Patrick Koro, he's now late, the husband of our late professor, Martha, who died also recently, was there. They asked me, what do you want here? I said, no, we just came here to express our displeasure with what the British are doing. Why hasn't all other youth come? I said, sir, I can't answer on their behalf. I can only speak on behalf of the students of the University of Dar es Salaam. Then he said, okay, fine. Can you sign an indemnity that if anything happens to the foreign secretary, you'll be accountable? I said, okay, fine. Just give me the book to sign. Then Foreign Minister Malechela says, you young men, you look very arrogant. It's not arrogant. So then I signed, committing myself that if anything happens to the British Foreign Secretary, I'll be accountable. Well, we were allowed to go in because I had signed. They told us to stay at certain position. But then when we realized the British Super VC-10 was going to other direction, we said, let's go there. So as the plane was stopping, we also stood there. Hey, home, go home, home, go home, home, go home. Our student leader at that time was Martin Shinganya. And we said, don't worry, you just start reading our message. So we're reading the message. The British gentleman came down the stairs. So at some point I got worried because these young people now were trying to throw papers at him. But fortunately, he left unharmed. So I can recite so many stories of how committed we were to the struggle that was ongoing. But it was a combination of many things. The type of professors we had, and the time we had. Because at the time, this was the time when even the national mood, the national aspirations were to fight for the independence of this country. Well, I'm the Chancellor. We have to reinvent ourselves as a university. What is it that is going to be our agenda? What is it that we are going to pursue? I think that's a message. You left it with us, leave it with us, we sit down with everyone. And as long as Professor Shivji is now a Professor Emeritus, they're still there nurturing the people. Penina is still there. No. So that's the message. But what is important to me, President, is you are talking about African Renaissance. President Mbeki is the brain behind the whole concept of the African Renaissance. He presented this idea at the OAU summit in Algiers. And it was picked from there. A committee was set up with him, Chairperson Obasanjo, Abdullahi Wade, and the others. Worked on it. It came to be translated itself into NEPAD, New African Partnership for African development. So for him to talk about reigniting, he is the right person to talk about it. And you and me are retired, but not very much tired. You expressed your displeasure with the reforms. They happened after I left. So I'm not part of that reforms. There was a time when I think President Kagame consulted us to give our opinion. Some of us gave a different opinion because this was chaired by President Kagame when they looked at it. So we had some ideas, but we thought they had already made up their mind. And when you are out of office, what you are doing is just giving advice. And when our advice was not heeded to, sure, you are one of them, well, what else do we do? It is those who were in office then, but I hope at some point they will appreciate. I agree with you entirely. Our organization is essentially political, so the Directorate of Political Affairs is the key directorate. But Africa has a huge problem of insecurity. You end one crisis, another one erupts. It's just like the crisis in Sudan. It just came from nowhere. Two generals fighting virtually for nothing, but they have destroyed the country. Khartoum is not the Khartoum that used to be. They're crazy guys, they're just bombing the place. So there is still a lot of security problems, security challenges, but I agree with you, President, there is need, and it is important, as you said. Our universities also should take interest about what is going on the continent and what is it that they can advise. So we feel glad that you chose our university, but you are not surprised. You are one of our alumni here, yes, and you are one of the people that this university offered a PhD, honorary PhD to you, so we're glad that you are giving back to your university, as some of us are also doing, giving back to the university that gave us the education that we're having now. Well, in that spirit and further expression of our esteem, it is now my privilege to present to you the academic shower. What is it now? Mbona mnakaa mbali? Jamani, hata hawajulikani walipo. Okay. Yeah, we're going to present to you the academic shower, a humble but heartfelt token of our appreciation for your outstanding contribution to the university, the academia, to Africa, and to humanity at large. May it remind you always our respect, our gratitude, and our abiding bond.